A field of rocks, a smoking sky, and earth shrouded in a gray veil. This was the world of the first humans after the eruption of Toba. Their lives were not an adventure, but a cold test of endurance. Breathing became difficult, the water became murky, and the sun turned into a fading backdrop. They had no scholarly words for volcanoes, but they had instinct and memory. What the mind had not yet comprehended was preserved in memory. This scenario is not about heroes with spears, but about those who survived in a world where not only beasts, but also the air itself could become an enemy. This is a story of adaptation to a new reality. Not about destruction, but about the dignity of a surviving species and body. Watch until the end, and you will learn what daily survival really required when the sky became Toba's jaws. Suddenly, the sky turned into a leaden gray canvas from which ash began to fall. Not light, dancing in the air, but heavy, like wet silk, saturated with coal and grief. This was not just rain, but the dead whisper of the volcano itself, which had awakened from its centuries-long slumber, forever disrupting the normal course of events and the harmony of the world. With each passing hour, the air became denser, saturated with tiny particles that settled on everything that was alive. The water in the rivers and springs turned murky, taking on an eerie gray hue, making people fear every sip, each of which could be their last or deadly. The leaves on the bushes and grass, green and full of life just yesterday, quickly turned yellow and fell off, as if autumn had come overnight, disrupting the usual rhythm of life and heralding a long, gloomy winter. The animals whose routes were patterns on the Earth's body, along which they had migrated for thousands of years, disappeared or went far away, searching for new, untouched feeding grounds, leaving the tribes completely alone. The tribes were left without their usual landmarks, not only physically, losing their way to watering holes and hunting grounds, but also spiritually, losing their connection to their ancestors and traditions. The loss of migration routes meant more than just losing their way. It was a loss of connection with both the past and the future, as their existence was inextricably linked to the cycles of nature. Only faint, ghostly memories of the world before the ash rain, of the bright sun and clear water, warmed their consciousness, giving them a glimmer of hope. They had no words to describe the all-encompassing horror that gripped their souls, but they had a fragile yet indomitable instinct to survive at any cost. Many wondered how to breathe when the air was poisoned by acrid dust that penetrated their lungs, and how to move when the ground beneath their feet became foreign and unpredictable, every step a risk. It was this mystery of the ash rain, its suddenness and destructiveness, that determined the fate of generations, changing their lives forever. Would you have survived under such a sky? What surprised you most about this story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Without a permanent home, without a safe haven, and without a map, their world became a field of continuous trials, where every decision could be their last. They didn't know GPS, couldn't look at a satellite image to find their way, couldn't find shelter unless they remembered exactly where they were yesterday. Their memory was their only living map, storing information about protruding rocks, clean water sources, and hidden shelters, each of which could save them from certain death. It was their treasure and their burden. They studied the shape of rocks, the sharp curves of mountain ridges, the colors of moss on old boulders, the shadows of trees at different times of the day, and even the smells that lingered in the air after rain to remember the way and find their way back. Every step required incredible effort, for the land was foreign and dangerous, and any pitfall could lurk beneath their feet. The trees that had once provided shade and shelter now stood with gray, lifeless branches and fire. Their main source of warmth, light, and protection was under constant threat. How could they keep the fire going when the sky was showering them with tiny, treacherous ash, and the wood was soaking wet from the endless autumn rain that penetrated to the bone? How could they transfer the fire from one campfire to another when even a single spark could be extinguished by the first gust of wind? This struggle against the elements, against merciless nature, was not just a daily problem, but a severe test of endurance, ingenuity, and will to live. Those who could keep the spark of life alive maintained the fire in this cold, hostile world, effectively held power over the fate of the entire group because their survival depended on them. Fire was simultaneously a weapon against predators, protection from the cold and hunger, and a symbol of hope flickering in the endless darkness. Want to know how they coped when the fire went out? There was no wood left, and all around them lay only endless, cold wasteland? Then stay tuned, the most interesting part is yet to come. Words proved too cumbersome and unreliable in a world where every careless sound could cause trouble or attract unwanted attention. Instead of the usual conversations filled with intonations and nuances, they built a whole language of silence, complex and profound, consisting of gestures, facial expressions, carefully controlled breathing, and barely perceptible touches. The eyes became an open window to the soul, reflecting not only the momentary fear of danger, but also a deep confidence in the future, doubts about the right path, or the unspoken pain of loss. They learned to read each other's emotions and intentions, from the slightest movement of an eyebrow or a barely noticeable twitch of a facial muscle. Lying was practically impossible because every movement of the body, every involuntary gesture betrayed inner tension or relaxation, the trembling of fingers caused by fear, or the frozen breath in anticipation of danger. All communication was extremely precise, minimalistic, and effective. A single shorthand movement, seemingly simple, could signify a complex warning of approaching danger, a silent question about further actions, or an unconditional order to retreat. For example, a sharp raise of the index finger could mean stop, and a light touch on the shoulder could mean follow me. This language was honed to perfection under conditions of constant threat. This language not only created deep trust between members of the tribe, but also reliably preserved the memory of past events and accumulated knowledge. The transfer of experience and vital skills took place through touch, symbolic signs drawn on the ground, and even through synchronized breathing rhythms during joint activities. Elders could pass on knowledge about animal tracks to young hunters without saying a word, simply by showing special signs on the ground or demonstrating hand movements. In a world where words lost their meaning and became a dangerous luxury, gestures became the primary and indispensable tool of communication. Without them, survival would have been simply impossible. Do you think such communication could have preserved the unity of the tribe in such harsh conditions? The next fact will definitely surprise you. Stay with us. When the tools they were used to using, those made through painstaking and careful work with stone, bone, or wood, were covered in a thick layer of ash and became almost useless, people were forced to return to the most basic, primitive methods. They learned not to create from scratch, but to find the necessary tools right in the chaos of the wild. A broken stone with a perfectly sharp edge that could replace a blade, or a piece of bone bent into a random but surprisingly convenient shape, suitable for scraping hides. Each such object did not require long hours of refinement, but could cut, stab, and scrape, saving lives and providing for basic needs. It was a revolution in their technological thinking, from creation to discovery. They understood that the shape of an object was not just a coincidence, but a valuable clue provided by nature itself. The natural crack in the stone could serve as a perfect, sharp blade, and the sharp angle of the chip could be used as a ready-made spear tip, capable of piercing the thick skin of an animal. By creating the simplest tools, they literally read the stone like an open book, where every crack and every protrusion was a sign for action, indicating a potential use. This unique art allowed them to survive in conditions where traditional materials were running out and time was catastrophically against them. They became masters of improvisation. Fire took on a special, almost sacred meaning. It became not just a source of heat, but a symbol of life, hope, and survival, a powerful defense against night predators in the cold, as well as a universal tool for cooking and processing materials. Those who knew how to obtain and maintain it had undeniable power and authority within the group. But how to keep the precious fire burning when everything around is covered in acrid ash, and the piercing wind constantly threatens to extinguish the last smoldering embers? How not to lose such vital heat and light in this dead, desolate world? These questions presented them with not just a challenge of survival, but a test of their resilience, wisdom, and ingenuity, requiring them to use all their knowledge and instincts. Is it true that some communities took turns carrying the same weapon to conserve precious resources, passing it from one hunter to another as needed? Watch this video to the end. It gets even more interesting. After the eruption of the Toba volcano, the familiar world of animals collapsed, changing beyond recognition. Animals sensitive to any changes in their environment fled en masse from the polluted areas covered with a layer of acrid ash, or disappeared altogether, dying of starvation and poisoning. This meant that hunting, which had previously been predictable and often successful, became not only a source of food, but also an extremely risky game with fate, where the life of the entire tribe was at stake. Every step taken by a hunter, cautiously treading unfamiliar and dangerous ground, was also a step into the darkness. He had to strain all his senses to the utmost, listening for the slightest sounds of the wind and the rustling of leaves, sensing the slightest changes in smell that indicated the presence of an animal, and guessing the subtle movements of grass or branches that could reveal hidden prey. The weapons were primitive, simple spears with stone tips, roughly sharpened stone knives, and required tremendous accuracy, incredible strength, and flawless skill from the hunter. A mistake, whether a missed shot or a loss of balance at a critical moment, meant not just hunger for a day or two, but death for the entire group, because the hunter was the link between the unforgiving nature and the survival of the people. A huge responsibility rested on his shoulders. At such moments, the line between the hunter and his potential prey was virtually erased. Any animal, especially a large one, could become aggressive at any moment, and the hunter himself could easily become the prey. The sounds of the forest, once familiar, changed. The beast's footsteps became quieter and more cautious. Its breathing became ragged, and the cries of the birds became rare and alarming. The hunter learned to read these new signs, turning every rustle and every shadow into part of his mental map of danger and hope. He learned to recognize animal tracks in the ashes, determine their freshness and direction of movement, and understand when an animal was frightened or wounded. A successful hunt meant immediate survival for everyone waiting in the camp, providing food and essential resources. Failure, on the other hand, meant certain death from starvation and exhaustion, especially with the harsh winter approaching. What did they do when food supplies ran out and winter was just beginning, promising unbearable trials? The answer will come very soon. When the edible plants that had fed the tribes for centuries disappeared under a thick layer of acrid ash, and prolonged droughts turned the remaining vegetation into dry, lifeless skeletons, gathering turned from a routine activity into a true art of survival. People learned to see signs of life and potential food in the most inconspicuous details, in the barely visible shape of a hidden root, in the subtlest shades of leaves that could indicate their edibility, or in the faint aroma of dried herbs that revealed their healing properties. Some rootstocks, deeply hidden in the ground, retained moisture even in the driest conditions, and it was these that became the last desperate source of food, keeping the tribe from starvation. Knowledge of where to find these precious reserves that could save lives was passed down from older, experienced members of the tribe to the young, often without a single word, through joint actions demonstrating the correct method of searching and gathering, and quiet, subtle signs indicating the location of edible plants. This was not just teaching, but the transmission of a vital cultural code. When gathering food, they took into account not only seasonality, but also weather conditions. Not every plant was edible, and the wrong choice could cost the entire group their lives due to poisoning or nutrient deficiency. They knew which berries could only be eaten after frost and which roots were safe only in dry weather. But how could they preserve what they had gathered when they had no cool cellars or special drying rooms at their disposal, and their supplies quickly spoiled under the influence of constantly fluctuating humidity? This was a serious problem. To solve it, people began to make marks on bushes and trees, a kind of warning for future generations or instructions for other groups. These were symbols carved into the bark, stones arranged in a special way, or even deliberately broken branches that indicated the presence of edible plants, danger, or resources that had already been used. It was like the first survival protocol in new, unbearable conditions, a kind of precursor to writing, aimed at preserving life and knowledge. Is it true that some communities took turns carrying the same weapon to save resources, passing it from hand to hand when one hunter returned and another went out in search of food? Wait, it gets even more interesting. After the disaster, when the world was plunged into chaos, individual survival became virtually impossible. The few who managed to survive were part of a group, a tribe united not only by blood ties, but by much stronger bonds. A common, all-consuming fear of the unknown and a deep, unconditional mutual care. Roles in the tribe were clearly defined, as if in a well-oiled machine. Strong and agile hunters went in search of food, risking their lives on every expedition. Women gathered the remaining plants, cared for the children, and maintained the hearth. And the elders, the keepers of wisdom, passed on their accumulated knowledge, made key decisions, and controlled the migration routes based on their experience. Every member of the tribe knew and felt perfectly well that if someone was weak, wounded, or sick, they would never be left alone to face danger. The wounded and exhausted were carried on people's hands, covering enormous distances. Food and meager supplies were shared down to the last crumb, despite everyone's own hunger. In times of extreme need and widespread hunger, difficult and sometimes painful decisions had to be made about survival priorities. But the common goal was one and the same: to survive, to preserve the tribe, to give future generations a chance. This survival instinct was stronger than any personal suffering. The tribe was not just a collection of people, it was a collective organism where the connection between each of its elements was stronger and more durable than that of any individual. They communicated not only with sparse words, but also with touches expressing support or comfort, with glances conveying hope or despair, and with shared rituals that upheld this complex social code and strengthened the sense of community. Without such comprehensive unity and mutual support, destruction would have been inevitable, and humanity might not have been able to overcome this bottleneck. In a world where thick ash covered the sky, turning day into eternal twilight, and the earth seemed dead, fear became a constant, unrelenting companion for every survivor. People were not just afraid for their lives and their future. They desperately sought meaning in this all-encompassing chaos, trying to understand why fate had dealt them such a cruel blow, depriving them of everything they knew. This agonizing search for meaning, this attempt to explain the inexplicable, gave rise to the first myths and superstitions, which became the basis for emerging beliefs. The fall of ash, like a silent but deadly snowfall, was perceived as a sign of the wrath of the gods or powerful spirits of nature, a harsh punishment for some unknown sins that no one could explain or remember. People began to pay close attention to the slightest sounds of the night. The mysterious rustling of the wind in dead branches, the sharp crack of dry branches under the feet of an invisible beast, which they took for the voices of spirits or harbingers of doom. Every unusual phenomenon, whether it was an unusual shadow or a distant echo, could be interpreted as a message from another world. Rituals, rhythmic dances around a flickering fire, carefully laying stones in a specific, sacred order, offerings to nature in the form of valuable, albeit scarce, resources, became not just actions, but a vital necessity. They helped to quell all-consuming fear, to feel at least an illusory connection with something greater and more powerful than themselves, and to find hope in despair. These rituals, carefully repeated from generation to generation, became the basis of the first religious beliefs, forming the collective memory and spiritual world of the tribe. Interestingly, some of these rituals also served practical purposes. For example, the ritual of keeping the fire burning was directly linked to survival, while organizing joint activities during hunting or migration strengthened group unity. Such traditions help people not only feel part of a large, cohesive community, but also maintain a semblance of order and meaning in the complete chaos of the surrounding world. When spoken words became too weak and unreliable for conveying complex, vital experiences and knowledge, people turned to more durable forms of communication, drawings and symbols. The rock paintings we find today were not just decorations or primitive sketches, but a complex system of communication and storage of collective memory. They became the first form of writing in their world. Each notch on a rock, each carefully drawn line or image of an animal could mean more than just a picture. It was an important message, where to find vital water, where to beware of dangerous predators, where to stop for the night or find shelter from the weather. These symbols were so practical and universal that they were understood even by strangers from other tribes who faced the same survival challenges. It was a universal language of survival. The art of early humans is undoubtedly the beginning of abstract thinking, the ability to see deeper meaning behind concrete images. Each picture could tell a whole story without the need for words, a story of a successful hunt, a dangerous journey, or an encounter with a hostile tribe. This method of knowledge transfer not only helped to unite disparate tribes into larger communities, but also greatly facilitated migration, building vital links between once completely isolated groups of people. Interestingly, some signs were used as a kind of passport or identification symbol. They indicated membership in a particular group or clan, as well as a person's status within the tribe, such as chief or shaman. This meant that even then, in the struggle for survival, people understood the importance of identity and social structure, without which it would have been impossible to maintain order and cooperation. These symbols were the first steps toward complex social organizations. After the catastrophic eruption of the Toba volcano, when a thick layer of ash hung over the entire Earth for a long time, the human population was reduced to about 1,000 individuals, and according to some estimates, even to a few hundred. This phenomenon is known in science as a bottleneck, a critical moment when the gene pool of a species is drastically reduced, creating an extremely narrow corridor of survival for all of humanity. Just a few hundred or thousand people became the only ancestors of all humans alive today. The consequences of this event were truly colossal and irreversible. Much of what seemed familiar and unshakable disappeared forever. The planet's climate changed beyond recognition. Familiar animal migration routes shifted or disappeared altogether. And the plant world changed so much that previous knowledge about it became useless. People were forced to adapt not just to a new, harsh reality, but to a world where survival became a constant, unpredictable game with ever-changing rules, requiring incredible flexibility and ingenuity. Those who survived this crucible of trials acquired a special resilience and vitality, not only physical, manifested in robust health and endurance, but also mental, allowing them to maintain hope and the will to live. Their genes retained a unique ability to adapt to extreme conditions, and their collective memory, both genetic, passed down through inheritance, and cultural, passed down through myths and rituals, was passed on, forming the foundation for future generations. This is why many traits of modern humans, such as remarkable patience, heightened vigilance, the ability to work together as a team, and to use every resource as efficiently as possible, have their roots in this critical period of survival. This narrow passage in human history was not only the most brutal test, but also the foundation for the entire future development of humanity. It shaped our biology and psychology, tempered the instincts that still help us adapt, and helped us learn to live in a world where complete control over nature had not yet been achieved, and man remained subject to its harsh laws. Echoes of Toba is not just a story about an ancient catastrophe, but a chronicle of incredible resistance and survival. People on the brink of extinction were able to preserve their memories, language, and skills, which later became the foundation of civilization. Their struggle is an example of how even in the deepest darkness, it is possible to find the spark of life and the strength to move forward. This is a lesson for us. Nature is unpredictable, but those who can hear its voice and learn from it are capable of surviving. What surprised you most about this story? Which aspect of prehistoric life do you find most mysterious? Subscribe to discover more stories where every word is a step toward understanding our roots.